Welcome back to the Gray Escape. Today, we're building a roof deck. Alright, so today we are painting the roof. We have cleaned it, and after scrubbing it, we realized that where we want to paint, we're going to have to take off this one blue sticker. I was trying to avoid having to do this, but unfortunately there is no way around it. We have to remove that blue sticker in order to paint the roof. Our stickers are very, very, very old, and they are cracked. I've seen a lot of people use heat guns and scrapers to try and peel these off. I don't think the adhesive will even soften at all if we try to use a heat gun on this, because it's just old and dry and cracked. So we are going to sand it off. We used an orbital sander and 60 grit sandpaper to sand the stickers off the bus. We did go down to the metal in some spots, but that'll be primed later. This fiberglass area luckily had no sticker, so we didn't have to sand there. And as you can see, we did find a couple of spots where there was some rust. I applied some Seal to this area to convert the rust to primer, as you can see. Now we're all ready for paint. After some Seal and 2 coats of Rust-Oleum, I thought the paint job was looking pretty good, so it was time to get started on the roof deck. I got a hold of some stainless steel brackets for the roof deck, and drilled out the holes to accommodate the bolts that we were going to use. With the brackets ready, I measured about 25 times and then started drilling holes in the bus. With the holes drilled and the brackets set in place, I used this 2x4 to line them all up and then siliconed them to the roof. I used some self-tapping screws just to hold the brackets in the correct location so that they wouldn't move when we went to attach the bolts later. We also put sealant around the bolts on the inside of the bus before adding a washer and nut to each one and tightening them down. Here I'm using a 2x4 to try and measure the angle that we'll need to cut on the 4x4s that we're going to use to hold up the deck. Now I'm marking the locations of the brackets on the 2x4 that's going to be our joist. I clamped the blocks in the correct locations and screwed them to the joist temporarily. So I can't actually show you while I'm doing it, but I've got this board and this board attached to the 3 blocks on either side, and the brackets are actually behind those boards, kind of holding them up right now because I can't hold them. And if you'll see, that board in the back is stretched across. This is just to make sure that the tops of the left board and the right board are flat enough to support the deck properly and even enough to look good. So what I'm going to do next is place each one of these boards with the blocks in the brackets, and then I'm going to mark where I need to drill through the blocks in order to attach those blocks to the brackets. Now that the bolt holes for the brackets were drilled through the blocks, I went ahead and reattached them to the running boards just with the same 2 screws, and I made a template to show us where we would need to put the bolts that will hold the running boards to the blocks. I just lined the center of the template up with the center of the block, and I marked on the template where the bolt goes through the block to attach it to the bracket, and in order to avoid that, the bolts will go here and here to attach this running board to the block. Much to my dismay, our Rust-Oleum paint job was not holding up. We had these brown spots coming up through the paint that I can only imagine are some sort of result of the Seal that I used over the whole roof. These spots don't correspond to the locations of the rusted areas, but since I used Seal on the whole roof, I can only imagine that this is something to do with that. We decided to do it right this time and buy elastomeric paint like we had originally planned. I know Henry's Tropicool is the go-to, but at $129 a gallon, I decided to go with their less expensive acrylic elastomeric roof coating. According to Henry's website, the major difference between the acrylic and silicone roof coatings is that the acrylic coating will withstand standing water for up to 48 hours, while the silicone roof coating will withstand standing water basically indefinitely. The acrylic coating, however, collects less dirt and stays whiter and brighter, protecting the insulatory properties of this coating over time. Since I'd heard on other people's channels about how paint doesn't like to stick to elastomeric roof coating, we decided to tape off the sides this time. I did a total of 2 coats of elastomeric roof coating and then peeled off the tape. Next up, we used Thompson's Stain and Seal to seal these 6x2s. After staining, we reattached the blocks to the running boards, and then got all our tools together to assemble this deck. We used T-nuts and 5-inch hex bolts with lock washers to attach the blocks to the running boards. Next, we put the running boards in place and attached the blocks to the brackets. After putting the first deck board in place, I realized there was a space between the center beam and the bottom of the deck board. For more support, I used a weather-treated fence slat to bridge the gap. I laid all our deck boards in place and attached the first one. I used a paint stick in between each deck board to make sure that the spaces were even. I didn't like that you could see the deck support block at the end of the deck, so I decided to add 2 more shorter boards on either side of the emergency exit. After attaching the boards at the ends, we used 2 pieces of masking tape to make sure that the screw heads would line up on the center board. I also had to cut out a notch so that the emergency exit door could open properly. Here I'm trimming about 3 inches off either end of the deck to make sure that it's not too wide and so that the ends will look even. We ended up with a lot of splotches and drips from the Thompson stain and seal, so I went ahead and sanded down the areas that didn't look right and resealed them. I also had to seal any of the ends of the boards that I cut in this notch around the emergency exit door. I'm so excited to finally have this roof deck complete, and it is very, very nice to sit up here and enjoy the Florida sunshine. The Florida sunshine. The sunshine? Okay, well, maybe some other time. But that's all for this week. Next week, we'll be working on installing solar panels on the front half of the bus. All that real estate ready to go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Gray Escape.